Marcus June sat in his car outside the hospital, trying to process the devastating conversation with his mother. He had always thought of Dorothy as a simple, elderly woman living on a fixed income. Now he was learning that she was not only wealthy, but also formidable when crossed. Over the next few days, Marcus tried to find ways to undo the damage he had caused. He contacted the estate sale company, hoping to track down the buyers of Dorothy's furniture. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chun," said the estate sale coordinator, "but we don't provide buyer information. That's confidential." "But this is an emergency," Marcus pleaded. "I need to get those items back." "I'm afraid that's impossible," the coordinator said. "All sales are final, and the buyers have no obligation to return their purchases." Marcus then tried a different approach. He posted ads on Craigslist and Facebook offering to buy back his mother's furniture at above-market prices. "Looking for Victorian armoire purchased at estate sale last weekend," one ad read. "Will pay double what you paid. Sentimental value. Please contact Marcus." But the responses were disappointing. A few people contacted him, but when they learned the full story, that he had sold his mother's belongings without permission while she was in the hospital, they refused to sell the items back to him. "You should be ashamed of yourself," one buyer wrote back. "I'm keeping this beautiful dining set, and I hope your mother presses charges." Marcus realized that his reputation in the community was being destroyed along with his relationship with his mother. Meanwhile, Dorothy was making her own plans. From her hospital bed, she was orchestrating a response that would teach Marcus a lesson he would never forget. "Robert," Dorothy said to her lawyer during one of his visits, "I want you to do something for me." "What do you need?" Robert asked. "I want you to find out where Marcus lives and who his landlord is," Dorothy said. "Why?" Robert asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Because I want to buy his building," Dorothy said with a slight smile. Robert looked at Dorothy with admiration. "You want to become your son's landlord?" "Exactly," Dorothy said. "If Marcus wants to steal from family, he can learn what it's like to deal with me as a business associate instead of as his mother." Robert made some phone calls and discovered that Marcus lived in a small apartment building owned by a retired couple who were looking to sell. Dorothy Robert reported back, "The building is for sale for $600,000. It's a good investment. 12 units, all occupied in a decent neighborhood. Buy it," Dorothy said without hesitation. "Are you sure?" Robert asked. "This seems like a very expensive way to make a point." "Robert," Dorothy said, "I've spent 40 years building a real estate portfolio. I know a good investment when I see one. The fact that my son happens to live there is just a bonus." Within a week, Dorothy had purchased Marcus's apartment building. Marcus had no idea that his mother was now his landlord. Dorothy was released from the hospital after 3 weeks. Instead of returning to her apartment, which was now empty of furniture thanks to Marcus's theft, she moved into a furnished corporate apartment while she decided what to do next. "Mrs. Chun," said Jennifer Walsh, her property manager, "what would you like me to do about your son's building?" "Manage it like any other property," Dorothy said. "Collect rent, handle maintenance requests, enforce lease terms, and if Marcus has any issues," Jennifer asked, "treat him like any other tenant," Dorothy said. "No special favors because he's my son." The first sign that something had changed came when Marcus received his new lease renewal notice. Instead of coming from the elderly couple who had owned the building, it came from Walsh Property Management. "Huh," Marcus said to himself. "I guess the building got sold." Marcus signed the lease renewal without thinking much about it. He had bigger problems to worry about, like the criminal charges and civil lawsuit his mother had filed against him. A month later, Marcus received a notice that made his blood run cold. It was an eviction notice for non-payment of rent. "That's impossible," Marcus said aloud. "I paid my rent." Marcus called the property management company to straighten out what he assumed was a mistake. "Mr. Chun," said the property manager, "according to our records, your rent payment was returned by the bank due to insufficient funds." Marcus checked his bank account and realized with horror that he was right. In his stress over the legal problems with his mother, he had forgotten to transfer money to his checking account before his rent payment was processed. "Can I pay the rent now?" Marcus asked. "It was just an oversight. You can pay the rent plus a $50 late fee," the property manager said, "but this will be noted on your rental history." Marcus paid the rent and late fee, but he was worried about the notation on his rental history as someone facing potential criminal charges. He couldn't afford to have any additional black marks on his record. 2 months later, Marcus received another notice from the property management company. This one informed him that his rent would be increasing by $200 per month when his lease expired. $200. Marcus said in shock. "That's a 25% increase." Marcus called to complain about the rent increase. "Mr. Chun," the property manager explained, "the new owner is bringing all units up to market rate. Your rent was significantly below market value." "But I've been a good tenant for 3 years," Marcus protested. "The new owner doesn't provide loyalty discounts," the property manager said. "You can either accept the new rent or find somewhere else to live." Marcus realized he was trapped with his legal troubles and damaged credit. Finding a new apartment would be nearly impossible. He would have to accept the rent increase. But the increases didn't stop there. Over the next 6 months, Marcus received notices about new fees and policies: a $50 monthly fee for parking, which had previously been free, a $25 monthly fee for trash collection, which had been included in the rent, new policy requiring all maintenance requests to be submitted in writing with a 24-hour notice, making it difficult to get quick repairs, a new policy prohibiting any noise after 9 p.m., with fines for violations. Marcus felt like he was being targeted, but he had no idea why. He assumed the new owner was just a particularly strict landlord. The final straw came when Marcus received a notice that his lease would not be renewed because the building was being converted to condominiums? "Condominiums?" Marcus said in disbelief. "They can't just kick everyone out." Marcus called the property management company to protest. "Mr. Chun," the property manager said, "the owner has the right to convert the building. All tenants are being given 60 days notice to vacate." "But where am I supposed to go?" Marcus asked. "That's not the owner's concern," the property manager replied. "You have 60 days to find alternative housing." Marcus was desperate. With his criminal case still pending and his credit damaged by the legal fees, finding a new apartment was going to be extremely difficult. In desperation, Marcus decided to call his mother. He hadn't spoken to Dorothy since their confrontation in the hospital 6 months earlier. "Mom," Marcus said when Dorothy answered her phone, "I need your help." "What kind of help?" Dorothy asked coldly. "I'm being evicted from my apartment," Marcus said. "The building is being converted to condos, and I can't find anywhere else to live." "That's unfortunate," Dorothy said without emotion. "Mom, please," Marcus begged. "I know you're angry with me, but I'm about to be homeless." "Marcus," Dorothy said, "you should have thought about that before you stole from me." "Mom, I've learned my lesson," Marcus said. "I know what I did was wrong." "Have you?" Dorothy asked. "Have you learned your lesson?" "Yes," Marcus said. "I understand now that I hurt you, and I'm sorry." "Marcus," Dorothy said, "do you know who owns your apartment building?" "Some investor, I guess," Marcus said. "Why?" "I own your apartment building," Dorothy said calmly. Marcus felt like the world had stopped spinning. "What?" "I bought the building 3 months ago," Dorothy explained. "I've been your landlord this entire time." You're the one who raised my rent?" Marcus asked. "I'm the one who brought your rent up to market rate," Dorothy corrected. "You're the one who's evicting me?" Marcus asked. "I'm the one who's converting the building to condominiums," Dorothy said. "It's a good investment strategy." Marcus was speechless. His own mother had been systematically making his life miserable for months. "Why?" Marcus finally asked. "Because," Dorothy said, "you needed to learn what it feels like to be powerless. You needed to understand what it's like when someone else controls your living situation." "But, Mom," Marcus said, "I could end up homeless." "Yes," Dorothy agreed. "You could. Just like I could have ended up in a nursing home if I had actually been the poor, helpless woman you thought I was." Marcus began to understand the lesson his mother was teaching him. "Mom," Marcus said, "I get it. I understand what you're trying to show me." "Do you?" Dorothy asked. "What do you understand?" "I understand that I took advantage of what I thought was your weakness," Marcus said. "I understand that I made decisions about your life without considering your feelings." And Dorothy prompted. "And I understand that actions have consequences," Marcus said. "I understand that when you hurt people, they might hurt you back." "That's right," Dorothy said. "But, Marcus, there's one more thing you need to understand." "What's that?" Marcus asked. "You need to understand that I didn't do this to hurt you," Dorothy said. "I did this to teach you there's a difference." If you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. "I mean," Dorothy explained, "that everything I've done has been designed to help you become a better person. The criminal charges taught you that theft has legal consequences. The civil lawsuit taught you that theft has financial consequences. And buying your building taught you that theft has personal consequences." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "So what happens now?" "Now," Dorothy said, "you have a choice. You can continue being angry and resentful about the consequences of your actions, or you can learn from this experience and become the man I raised you to be." "What if I choose to learn?" Marcus asked. "Then we can start rebuilding our relationship," Dorothy said. "But it will take time, and it will require you to prove that you've genuinely changed." "And the eviction?" Marcus asked. "The eviction stands," Dorothy said. "You need to find your own place to live." and learn to manage your own life without depending on family connections. But Mom, Marcus said, I can't afford market rate rent anywhere else. Then you'll need to get a better job or a second job or find roommates. Dorothy said, you'll need to do what millions of other people do when they can't afford to live alone. Marcus realized that his mother was forcing him to become truly independent for the first time in his life. Mom, Marcus said, will you ever forgive me? I already have forgiven you, Dorothy said. But forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. It means I'm not going to let anger poison my heart. Can I see you? Marcus asked. Can we have dinner or something? Not yet, Dorothy said. When you've found a place to live, gotten your legal troubles resolved, and shown me that you can be responsible for your own life, then we can talk about rebuilding our relationship. How long will that take? Marcus asked. That depends on you, Dorothy said. 6 months later, Marcus had found a small studio apartment that he could afford on his salary. He had taken a second job delivering food on weekends to make ends meet. He had pleaded guilty to the theft charges and was serving community service instead of jail time. He had set up a payment plan to repay his mother the $50,000 in civil damages. Most importantly, he had learned to live within his means and manage his own problems without expecting family to bail him out. Mom, Marcus said when he called Dorothy, I think I'm ready to have that dinner now. Are you? Dorothy asked, what makes you think you're ready? Because I'm not calling to ask you for anything, Marcus said. I'm calling to ask if I can give you something. What's that? Dorothy asked. An apology, Marcus said. A real apology, not because I want something from you, but because I genuinely understand what I did wrong and I want you to know that I've changed. Dorothy smiled for the first time in months. I'd like that very much. Today, 2 years later, Dorothy and Marcus have rebuilt their relationship. Marcus still lives in his small studio apartment and works 2 jobs, but he's learned to be proud of his independence. Dorothy has kept the apartment building as an investment, but she's also kept the lesson it taught her son. Marcus, Dorothy said during a recent dinner, I want you to know that I'm proud of the man you've become. Thanks, Mom, Marcus said. I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. Do you? Dorothy asked. You didn't just punish me, Marcus said. You taught me how to be a better person. You taught me that family isn't about what you can take from each other. It's about what you can give to each other. Dorothy smiled and patted her son's hand. Now you're learning, Marcus. What do you think about Dorothy's methods? Did she go too far in teaching her son a lesson? Or was it exactly what he needed to learn? Should parents who are betrayed by their adult children take such drastic action? Let us know in your comments. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who are willing to let us face the consequences of our actions. Dorothy could have simply forgiven Marcus and moved on, but instead she chose to teach him a lesson that would make him a better person for the rest of his life. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible family drama stories that will make you think about what really matters in relationships. Marcus realized that his mother was right. He had seen what he thought was vulnerability and had decided to exploit it. Mom, Marcus said desperately, what can I do to fix this? You can return every single item you sold, Dorothy said. But I can't, Marcus said. They've been sold to different people. I don't even know who bought them. Then you can pay me the full replacement value, Dorothy said. Mom, I don't have $50,000, Marcus said. That's not my problem. Dorothy replied, you should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me. Mom, please, Marcus begged. I'll do anything to make this right. Will you? Dorothy asked. Will you go to every person who bought my belongings and explained that you stole them from your mother while she was in the hospital? Will you ask them to return the items out of the goodness of their hearts? Marcus was quiet. He knew that was impossible. Will you get a second job to pay me back? Dorothy continued. Will you sell your car, downsize your apartment, and live on ramen noodles until you've repaid every penny? I don't know, Marcus said. You don't know, Dorothy repeated. Marcus, you were very quick to make decisions about my property, but you can't make decisions about sacrificing to fix your mistakes. If you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment trying to figure out how to come up with $50,000. His annual salary was $45,000. Even if he could somehow save every penny he earned, it would take more than a year to repay his mother. Marcus decided to visit Dorothy in the hospital the next day to plead his case in person. Mom, he said as he entered her room, we need to talk. We've talked, Dorothy said without looking up from her book. Mom, please look at me, Marcus said. Dorothy closed her book and looked at her son. What do you want, Marcus? I want to apologize, Marcus said. I want to make this right. How? Dorothy asked. I don't know yet, Marcus admitted, but I'll figure it out. Marcus, Dorothy said, do you understand why I'm so angry? Because I sold your stuff without asking, Marcus said. No, Dorothy said. That's what you did, but that's not why I'm angry. Then why? Marcus asked, I'm angry because you saw your mother in the hospital fighting for her life, and your first thought was about how you could profit from the situation, Dorothy said. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the stomach. That's not ... IDN single, quotes D ... Didn't you? Dorothy asked. Marcus, I was in intensive care for 3 days. Did you visit me during those 3 days? I came once, Marcus said quietly. Once, Dorothy repeated. But you went to my apartment multiple times to inventory my belongings and arrange their sale. Marcus realized that his mother was right. He had been more focused on her possessions than on her health. Mom, Marcus said, tears starting to form in his eyes. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. You didn't mess up, Dorothy said. You made a choice. You chose to steal from me instead of supporting me. What can I do? Marcus asked. You can accept the consequences of your actions. Dorothy said you can go to court, face the criminal charges, and figure out how to pay the civil judgment. And then what? Marcus asked. Will you forgive me? Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, forgiveness isn't something you can earn by paying money. Forgiveness comes from genuine remorse and changed behavior. I am remorseful, Marcus said. Are you? Dorothy asked. Or are you just sorry you got caught? Marcus couldn't answer that question honestly. Marcus, Dorothy said, I want you to leave now. I need to rest. Mom, please don't give up on me, Marcus said. I'm not giving up on you, Dorothy said. I'm protecting myself from you. As Marcus left the hospital, he realized that he had lost more than his inheritance. He had lost his mother's trust, his family's respect, and possibly his freedom. But the story was far from over. Dorothy had one more surprise for Marcus that would teach him the ultimate lesson about the consequences of his actions. Dorothy spent the first week in the hospital focused entirely on her recovery. She was in pain, exhausted, and worried about her health. She didn't think much about her apartment or her belongings. Marcus visited her every few days, bringing flowers and updates about her mail. He seemed attentive and caring, asking about her pain levels and when she might be able to come home. Mom, Marcus said during one visit, your apartment is fine. I've been checking on it regularly. Thank you, sweetheart. Dorothy said, I don't know what I'd do without you. If you're enjoying this story, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. But what Dorothy didn't know was that Marcus had been doing more than just checking on her apartment. On his second visit to her home, he had walked through the rooms with a different perspective than ever before. This stuff is worth more than I thought, Marcus said to himself as he examined Dorothy's antique dining room set. That table alone is probably worth $5,000. Marcus began researching the values of Dorothy's furniture and belongings online. He discovered that several pieces were valuable antiques, including a Victorian-era armoire, a set of mid-century modern chairs, and a collection of vintage jewelry that had belonged to Dorothy's mother. She's never going to be able to live independently again, Marcus told himself. She'll probably have to move to assisted living. This stuff will just sit in storage. Marcus convinced himself that he was being practical rather than greedy. In his mind, Dorothy would need money for her medical care and living expenses. And selling her furniture was a logical way to raise funds. What Marcus didn't consider was asking Dorothy's permission or discussing the decision with her. 2 weeks into Dorothy's hospital stay, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He contacted an estate sale company and arranged for them to evaluate Dorothy's belongings. This is a nice collection, the estate sale coordinator said as she walked through Dorothy's apartment. We could probably get $15,000 to $20,000 for everything. That sounds good, Marcus said. When can you schedule the sale? We could do it this weekend, the coordinator said. We'll need 3 days to set up and advertise. Marcus signed the contract without hesitation. In his mind, he was solving a problem and helping his mother at the same time. The estate sale took place over a weekend while Dorothy was still in the hospital. Unaware that strangers were walking through her home, examining her possessions, and purchasing the furniture and belongings she had treasured for decades, Dorothy's antique dining room set sold for $6,000. Her mother's jewelry collection sold for $3,000. The Victorian armoire sold for $4,000. One by one, the pieces of Dorothy's life were carried away by strangers. Marcus collected the check for $18,000 and deposited it into his own bank account, telling himself he would give the money to Dorothy when she was released from the hospital. But Marcus had made a critical error in judgment. He had assumed that Dorothy was just another elderly woman with some nice furniture and no other assets. He had no idea that he had just stolen from one of the wealthiest property owners in Seattle on Monday morning. 3 days after the estate sale, Dorothy received an unexpected visitor in her hospital room. "Mrs. Chun," said a woman in a business suit, "my name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm the property manager for your buildings." Dorothy was confused. "Jennifer, what are you doing here? Is there a problem with one of the properties?" Mrs. Chun, Jennifer, said carefully, "I received some concerning information over the weekend. One of your tenants called to report that there was an estate sale happening in your apartment." Dorothy felt her heart rate monitor begin beeping faster. "An estate sale in my apartment?" "Yes," Jennifer said. "Mrs. Patterson from apartment 3B said there was strangers going through your belongings and selling your furniture." Dorothy couldn't believe what she was hearing. "That's impossible. The only person with access to my apartment is my son." Jennifer looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Chun, I think you need to call your son." Dorothy's hands were shaking as she dialed Marcus's number. "Hi, Mom," Marcus said cheerfully when he answered. "How are you feeling today?" "Marcus," Dorothy said, her voice trembling with anger, "did you sell my furniture?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mom," Marcus said finally, "I can explain." "Explain what?" Dorothy asked. "Explain how you sold my belongings without my permission while I was in the hospital." "Mom, you're going to need money for your care," Marcus said. "I thought I was helping you." "You thought you were helping me by stealing from me?" Dorothy asked. "I wasn't stealing," Marcus protested. "I was going to give you the money." "Where is the money now?" Dorothy asked. It's in my account," Marcus admitted, "but I was going to transfer it to you." Dorothy realized that her son had not only sold her belongings without permission, but had also kept the money for himself. "Marcus," Dorothy said quietly, "you have made the biggest mistake of your life." "Mom, what do you mean?" Marcus asked. "I mean," Dorothy said, "that you have just stolen from someone who has the resources to make you very sorry." "Mom, I don't understand," Marcus said. "You will," Dorothy said, and hung up the phone. Dorothy turned to Jennifer, who had been listening to the conversation with growing concern. "Jennifer," Dorothy said, "I need you to call my lawyer immediately. And I need you to call the police." "The police?" Jennifer asked. "Yes," Dorothy said firmly. "My son has just committed theft, and he's about to learn that there are consequences for stealing from your mother." What Marcus didn't know was that his simple mother owned not just the building where she lived, but 12 other properties throughout Seattle with a total value of over $8 million. And now he was about to face the full legal and financial power of a woman he had severely underestimated. Dorothy Chun lay in her hospital bed, still processing the devastating news that her son Marcus had sold her furniture while she was fighting for her life. But Marcus was about to learn that he had made a catastrophic miscalculation about his mother's resources and resolve. "Mrs. Chun," said Detective Rodriguez as he entered her hospital room, "I understand you want to file a theft report against your son." "That's correct," Dorothy said firmly. "He sold my belongings without my permission and kept the money." "How much money are we talking about?" the detective asked. $18,000, Dorothy replied. Detective Rodriguez whistled softly. "That's grand theft. If convicted, your son could face up to 5 years in prison." "Good," Dorothy said, without hesitation. The detective looked surprised by Dorothy's cold response. "Mrs. Chun, Are you sure you want to press charges against your own son? Many families prefer to handle these matters privately. Detective, Dorothy said, my son chose to steal from me while I was in the hospital. He made his choice, and now I'm making mine. While Detective Rodriguez was taking Dorothy's statement, her lawyer, Robert Kim, arrived at the hospital. Robert said as he entered the room, Jennifer told me what happened. I'm so sorry. Robert, Dorothy said, I need you to do several things for me. Whatever you need, Robert replied. First, I want you to file a civil lawsuit against Marcus for the full value of everything he's sold, plus punitive damages, Dorothy said. That's certainly possible, Robert said. What else? Second, Dorothy continued, I want you to change my will immediately. Marcus is to receive nothing when I die. Dorothy, Robert said carefully, you're upset right now. Maybe you should wait a few days before making such a drastic decision. I'm not upset, Dorothy said calmly. I'm clear-headed for the first time in years. My son has shown me exactly who he is, and I believe him. What about your properties? Robert asked. You had planned to leave everything to Marcus. I'll leave everything to charity, Dorothy said. Marcus has forfeited any claim to my estate. Robert nodded and began taking notes. I'll draft the new will today. And Dorothy added, I want you to send Marcus a letter informing him of the legal actions I'm taking against him. Are you sure you don't want to speak with him first? Robert asked. I spoke with him, Dorothy said. He lied to me and tried to justify stealing from me. There's nothing more to discuss. That afternoon, Marcus received a phone call that would change his life forever. Mr. Chun, said the voice on the other end. This is Detective Rodriguez with the Seattle Police Department. I need you to come to the station to answer some questions about a theft report. A theft report? Marcus asked, though he already knew what this was about. Your mother has filed charges against you for selling her property without permission, the detective explained. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. Officer, this is just a family misunderstanding. My mother is confused because of her medication. Mr. Chun, the detective said firmly, your mother is completely lucid, and she has documentation proving that you sold $18,000 worth of her belongings. This is a serious criminal matter. Marcus hung up the phone and immediately called his mother's hospital room. Mom, he said when Dorothy answered, you called the police on me? Yes, I did, Dorothy replied calmly. Mom, I'm your son, Marcus protested. How could you do this to me? How could I do this to you? Dorothy asked. Marcus, you stole from me while I was in the hospital. What did you expect me to do? I expected you to understand that I was trying to help you, Marcus said. Help me? Dorothy asked. Marcus, you sold my mother's jewelry. You sold the dining room table where we ate Christmas dinner for 20 years. You sold furniture that held memories of your father. How was that helping me? Marcus was silent for a moment. Mom, I thought you'd need the money for medical expenses. You asked me if I needed money, Dorothy asked. No, but did you ask me if I wanted to sell my belongings? Dorothy continued. No, but I thought, You thought you could make decisions about my property without consulting me, Dorothy said. That's called theft. Mom, please, Marcus begged. Don't let this destroy our family. Marcus? Dorothy said sadly. You destroyed our family when you chose to steal from me instead of asking for help. The next day, Marcus received a certified letter from Robert Kim's law office. As he read the contents, his face went pale. The letter informed him that Dorothy was filing a civil lawsuit seeking $50,000 in damages, the replacement costs of the stolen items plus punitive damages. The letter also informed him that Dorothy had changed her will and that he would no longer inherit any of her estate. $50,000. Marcus said aloud, "Where am I supposed to get $50,000? But the biggest shock was yet to come. At the bottom of the letter was a paragraph that made Marcus's blood run cold. Please be advised that Mrs. Dorothy Chun is the owner of 13 commercial and residential properties in the Seattle area, with a combined value of approximately $8 million. Any attempts to harass, intimidate, or contact Mrs. Chun outside of official legal proceedings will result in additional legal action." Marcus read the paragraph 3 times before the words sank in. His mother owned $8 million worth of real estate. That's impossible, Marcus said to himself. She lives in a tiny apartment. She clips coupons. She buys generic groceries. But as Marcus thought about it, he began to remember small details that now made sense. His mother never seemed worried about money. She had paid for his college education without taking out loans. She had helped him with his divorce attorney fees without hesitation. Marcus called his mother's hospital room again. "Mom," he said when she answered, "I just got a letter from your lawyer?" And Dorothy asked, "Mom, do you really own $8 million worth of real estate?" Marcus asked. "I do," Dorothy confirmed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Marcus asked. "Because," Dorothy said, "I wanted to see what kind of man you would become without knowing about my wealth. Now I know. What do you mean?" Marcus asked. Dorothy said that you saw an elderly woman living modestly and decided she was an easy target for theft. You didn't see your mother who might need help. You saw an opportunity to make money. Marcus was beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. "Mom, if you had known I was wealthy, you would have treated me differently," Dorothy interrupted. "But, Marcus, the fact that you thought I was poor doesn't excuse stealing from me. It makes it worse." "How does it make it worse?" Marcus asked. "Because," Dorothy explained, "you thought you were stealing from someone who couldn't fight back. You thought you were taking advantage of a helpless old woman. That's not just theft, Marcus. That's predatory behavior." If you enjoy family drama stories that will shock you to your core, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any episodes. Today I'm going to tell you a story that will leave you breathless. A story about a mother who discovered her son's true nature while she was fighting for her life in the hospital. This story begins with Mrs. Dorothy Chun, a 74-year-old widow who lives in a modest apartment in downtown Seattle. Dorothy lost her husband William 3 years ago to cancer, and since then, she's been living quietly in the same 2-bedroom apartment they shared for over 20 years. Dorothy has one son, Marcus, who is now 42 years old. Marcus works as a sales manager at an electronics store and has always struggled financially. He's divorced, pays child support for 2 children he rarely sees, and lives paycheck to paycheck despite earning a decent salary. "Mom," Marcus would often say during his visits, "you're living too simply. You should enjoy life more. Spend some money on yourself. Dorothy would always smile and reply, Marcus, I have everything I need. I'm content with my simple life. What Marcus didn't know was that his mother's simple life was a carefully constructed facade. Dorothy had learned long ago that displaying wealth only attracted the wrong kind of attention, even from family members. Dorothy's apartment was furnished with older but well-maintained furniture. A comfortable sofa from the 1980s, a solid wood dining table that had belonged to her parents, bookshelves filled with novels and photo albums. To Marcus, it looked like the home of an elderly woman living on a fixed income. Mom, Marcus would say, some of this furniture is really outdated. You should let me help you get some new things. This furniture has sentimental value, Dorothy would reply. It holds memories of your father and our life together. But Marcus saw dollar signs where Dorothy saw memories. He had noticed that some of her pieces were genuine antiques, and he had researched their potential value online. Dorothy worked as a bookkeeper for years before retiring. She was meticulous with money, never spending frivolously, always saving and investing wisely. What Marcus didn't know was that Dorothy and William had been incredibly successful real estate investors. Starting in the 1970s, Dorothy and William had purchased small apartment buildings and commercial properties throughout Seattle. They renovated them, managed them carefully, and reinvested the profits into more properties. By the time William died, they owned a substantial real estate portfolio. Dorothy continued managing the properties after William's death, but she did so quietly. She collected rent checks, handled maintenance issues, and made investment decisions, all while maintaining the appearance of a simple retiree living in a modest apartment. Why don't you tell Marcus about the properties? Her friend Helen had asked. He's your son. He should know about your success. Helen, Dorothy had replied, I want to see what kind of man Marcus becomes on his own. If he knows I'm wealthy, he might never learn to be independent. Dorothy's apartment was actually the penthouse unit of a building she owned. The other tenants paid rent to a property management company, never knowing that the quiet, elderly woman upstairs was their landlord. 3 months ago, Dorothy began experiencing chest pains and shortness of breath. She initially dismissed these symptoms as signs of aging, but when they became severe, she finally went to see her doctor. Mrs. Chun, Dr. Martinez said after reviewing her test results, you have significant blockages in your coronary arteries. You need immediate surgery. How serious is it? Dorothy asked. Very serious, the doctor replied. Without surgery, you could have a massive heart attack at any time. Dorothy was admitted to the hospital that same day. The surgery was scheduled for the following morning, and the doctors warned her that the recovery would be lengthy and difficult. Marcus Dorothy said when she called her son from the hospital, I'm having heart surgery tomorrow. What? Marcus was shocked. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were having heart problems? I didn't want to worry you, Dorothy said, but I wanted you to know in case something happens during the surgery. Mom, nothing's going to happen, Marcus said. You're strong. You'll get through this. I hope so, Dorothy said. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Mom, I need you to check on my apartment while I'm in the hospital, Dorothy said. Make sure everything is secure. Collect my mail, that sort of thing. Of course, Marcus said. I'll take care of everything. Dorothy gave Marcus a spare key to her apartment and her mailbox. She thought she was entrusting her son with the simple task of watching over her home. While she recovered, the surgery was more complicated than expected. What should have been a 4-hour procedure lasted 8 hours, and Dorothy spent 3 days in intensive care before being moved to a regular room. Mrs. Chun, Dr. Martinez said during one of his visits, the surgery was successful, but your recovery is going to take longer than we initially thought. You'll probably be here for at least 2 weeks, and then you'll need several weeks of rehabilitation. Dorothy was disappointed but not surprised at 74. She knew that major surgery would be a significant challenge for her body. Dr. Dorothy said, "Will I be able to live independently again?" "Eventually, yes," Dr. Martinez said, "but you'll need help for the first few months. Do you have family who can assist you?" "I have a son," Dorothy said. "I'm sure he'll help me."